Stella had 36 hours to find a husband, not a real one. Just one convincing enough to fool 200 wedding guests, her judgmental family, and the sister who believed she was happily married. She never expected the man who stepped up to be a billionaire with heartbreak in his eyes, secrets of his own, and a kiss that felt anything but fake. Subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The clatter of cutlery, the low hum of conversations, and the occasional shout from the kitchen filled the air at Sunnyside Cafe, a small-town diner nestled at the corner of Maple and Fifth. It was the kind of place where everyone knew your name, where the regulars sat in the same booths every morning, and where dreams were postponed for double shifts and overtime. Stella wiped down table 6 with a tired hand, her apron stained with coffee rings and grease. Her feet ached. The clock above the counter read 6:12 p.m. Only 3 more hours until closing. She forced a smile as she refilled Mr. Jenkins' coffee for the 3rd time. He was one of the regulars, sweet in an old man kind of way, but he had a habit of asking too many personal questions. "You ever gonna find yourself a man, Stella?" he asked today, without a hint of malice. Her smile froze for a second before she chuckled lightly. "Maybe next time they're on sale," she joked, walking away before he could respond. She ducked behind the counter, out of sight, her chest tightening. That question had been echoing in her mind all week. "You ever gonna find yourself a man?" She had found one, according to her family. A husband, in fact. Successful. Kind. A gentleman. Married for a year and so in love. Her mother had bragged about him to her church friends. Her sister had joked about how she'd finally settled down. Her cousin had made not-so-subtle digs on social media about glow-up queens with ring fingers. Except none of it was true. It was a lie. A huge, stupid, desperate lie. Stella collapsed onto the small bench in the back corner of the diner, away from customers and co-workers. She gripped her phone tightly in her lap. The screen was lit with a message from her younger sister, Selena. "Can't wait to see you and your hubby this weekend. Remember the welcome dinner is Friday. I told everyone you're bringing him." Smiling face with heart eyes. Stella's stomach churned. The wedding was 3 days away. Her sister's wedding, the grand, pastel-colored, vineyard ceremony with all the bells and whistles their parents could afford. Selena, the golden child, was marrying her longtime sweetheart in front of 200 guests. And Stella was supposed to show up with a husband that didn't exist. She had told the lie 6 months ago, during a heated call with her mother. The pressure had been unbearable. The comparisons, the subtle insults, the reminders that she was pushing 30 and still working at a diner, while others were building real lives. She said it without thinking, trying to buy herself some peace. "I'm married, okay? I just didn't want to make it a big deal." She expected that to be the end of it. But instead, it only invited more curiosity. Who was he? What did he do? When could they meet him? And now the wedding. There was no escape. "I need a husband," she whispered under her breath, her voice trembling. Then louder this time, angry at herself. "I need a husband urgently." A few customers looked over briefly, but she didn't care. Her hands covered her face as tears welled in her eyes. This wasn't just about appearances. It was about dignity. Her whole life she'd been the one who never quite fit the mold. The artsy one, the one who dropped out of college, the one who took longer to find herself. And now, in front of all those judging eyes, she'd be caught in the biggest lie of her life. Her breathing grew shaky. She pressed her back to the wall and closed her eyes. She didn't see the man watching her. At the far end of the diner, seated alone in a booth with a cup of black coffee, was a tall man in a charcoal gray coat. He had sharp, clean features, a quiet intensity in his gaze, and a laptop open in front of him. He had been coming in every evening for the last few days, ordering the same thing, black coffee, nothing else. Damian Stone wasn't the kind of man people overlooked, but he also wasn't the kind who drew attention intentionally. He blended into the background with effortless grace. But tonight, he noticed something different. The waitress in the corner, the one with tired eyes and a brave smile, was crying. And more than that, she had just said she needed a husband. Urgently. Something about those words lingered in his ears. Not the desperation, he'd seen desperation before. But the honesty, the raw, unfiltered ache behind it. He closed his laptop slowly, set down his coffee, and stood. Something inside him, something he hadn't felt in years, told him to go to her. And just like that, everything was about to change. The soles of Damian Stone's shoes made no sound against the worn linoleum floor of Sunnyside Cafe, but his presence carried a weight that turned a few heads. He moved with purpose, tall and confident, dressed not like the usual customers in flannel and jeans, but in a sleek, tailored overcoat that still held the faint chill of winter air. Underneath, his shirt was crisp, his watch discreetly expensive. His expression, calm but unreadable, bore the quiet certainty of someone who never asked for permission to take up space. He walked past the empty tables and paused in front of the small corner bench, where Stella sat with her face buried in her hands. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep and smooth, more statement than question. Stella's head jerked up. Her eyes, slightly red from holding back tears, widened when she saw him. She blinked. "Sorry, can I help you?" she asked quickly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand and sitting up straighter, flustered by his sudden presence. She'd served him coffee before, but never exchanged more than a few words. "I heard what you said," Damian replied, eyes locked on hers. Her heart dropped. She glanced around, cheeks burning. "What? No, you must have misheard. You said you need a husband." Urgently. His tone was calm, observant. There was no judgment, just quiet curiosity. "I might be able to help." She stared at him, stunned. He gestured to the seat across from her. "May I?" I guess," she said, completely thrown off. Damian sat down, folding his hands neatly on the table like they were about to conduct a business negotiation. He looked at her directly, calmly, without the discomfort people usually showed around someone who just had a breakdown in public. "I don't usually involve myself in strangers' problems," he said. "But you looked cornered, and you said it loud enough for the whole room to hear." Stella gave a dry, embarrassed laugh. "Great. So now I'm the crazy waitress yelling about needing a husband. Perfect." He didn't smile. "You didn't sound crazy. You sounded desperate, but not reckless." She looked at him carefully. He had that polished, controlled demeanor, like a man used to power, but bored by it. His eyes were sharp, but not unkind. Still, she didn't trust this. "You're serious?" she asked. "You want to what, marry me?" "I didn't say that," he replied evenly. "But I'm willing to play the part." Stella blinked again. "Play the part?" "Fake husband," he said plainly. "Temporary arrangement. Appearances only. No real commitment." Her brain short-circuited. I don't even know your name." "Damian Stone." That name sparked something faint in her memory. She narrowed her eyes. "Why does that sound familiar?" "I own Stone Tech." Her eyes widened. "Stone Tech?" "The tech company with the self-driving." "Wait, are you serious right now?" He gave a small nod. Stella leaned back, as if putting distance between them would help her comprehend what was happening. "Okay," she said slowly, half laughing, half panicked. "So let me get this straight. You're a billionaire, sitting in my diner, volunteering to be my fake husband for a weekend wedding. Why?" Damian took a long breath before answering. His gaze flicked briefly to the window, where snow was beginning to dust the sidewalk. "Let's just say I've done a lot of things for calculated reasons," he said. "But this? I don't know. Maybe it's boredom. Maybe it's the fact that I've been where you are, stuck in a lie because the truth feels too humiliating. Or maybe I just want to see what happens when I do something irrational." She eyed him carefully. "You're insane." "Possibly. And you expect me to believe you'll just waltz into my sister's wedding and pretend to be my husband? Just like that? If you agree to it, yes. No strings. None. No payment. I don't need your money." Stella stared at him for a long moment, trying to read him. Was he playing her? Was this some weird game rich people played when they were bored? but there was something unsettlingly sincere in the way he looked at her. Still, her practical brain fought to regain control. What if someone recognizes you? You're kind of famous. He shrugged. I've been keeping a low profile for over a year. Most people think I moved overseas. Besides, your family probably isn't watching tech industry news. She hated how right he was. Her parents still used flip phones. Stella exhaled shakily. I must be out of my mind. Maybe, Damian said. But you're not alone. She paused. That last sentence hit differently. I don't even know where to start, she said finally. My family thinks we've been married a year. They'll ask questions. Dates. Photos. How we met. I'm good at improv, Damian said. And I listen. Tell me what they need to hear. A silence stretched between them. Her heart pounded. This was insane. Absolutely, totally insane. But so was the idea of showing up alone and humiliated to her sister's wedding, of being the joke of the weekend, of her lie unraveling in front of her entire extended family. Maybe this was her only shot at making it through. She looked him straight in the eyes and said, Okay, fine. You're my husband now. Damian leaned back, nodded once, and offered his hand across the table. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Stone. Stella hesitated. Then slowly, she reached forward and took his hand. It was warm, firm, and that was how it began. Not with love, not with romance, but with a lie, a deal, and a stranger with nothing to lose. The diner had thinned out by the time Stella and Damian returned to her small apartment 2 blocks away. The evening had shifted from surreal to downright absurd, but the intensity of it left no room for denial. It was happening. She was bringing a stranger, a billionaire stranger, to her sister's wedding as her fake husband. Stella's hands trembled as she unlocked the door. It's not much, she muttered as she pushed it open. The apartment was modest, beige walls, hand-me-down furniture, and a flickering lamp in the corner that she kept forgetting to replace. A small bookshelf by the window held dog-eared romance novels and cookbooks she barely had time to use. The scent of cinnamon and coffee lingered in the air, softening the edges of the otherwise bare space. Damian stepped in, scanning the room once without comment. He wasn't the kind of man to pass judgment openly, but Stella could feel it, the quiet contrast between his world and hers. I wasn't expecting you to come over tonight, she said awkwardly, kicking off her shoes. I figured we should prepare. If I'm going to play your husband, I should at least know how you take your coffee. She looked at him. He was serious. Her voice dropped into a half-laugh. This is insane. You know that, right? Damian moved to the couch and sat down like he'd done it 100 times before. Most things worth doing are. Stella grabbed a pen and notepad from the counter. All right then, Mr. Stone. Let's get married. He gave her a rare half-smile. Let's. She sat across from him, pulling her legs onto the armchair, hair tumbling out of the bun she'd tied hastily earlier that day. There was no point pretending to be someone else now. Okay, she started, chewing on the cap of the pen. My family thinks we met in New York. I told them we met at a charity event. Was there an actual event? No, I made it up. But you seem like the type who's been to a few. Dozens, he said. That works. I'll say it was a gala for inner-city youth. That'll make your mom cry. Stella scribbled it down. We started dating right after. Long distance for a few months, then you moved closer. I told them you were working on some new project out of state, something you couldn't talk about. Very on brand, he said, nodding. How long have we been married in the lie? A year. Any kids? Her breath caught slightly. No, but I said we might be trying soon. Damian raised an eyebrow. Optimistic. She rolled her eyes. I was trying to sound normal. Happy. Settled. He leaned forward. What do your parents care about most? What do they expect from me? Stella bit her lip, thinking. They're old school. Respect matters. Stability. Manners. My dad used to say a man's handshake says everything you need to know about him. Damian flexed his hand absently. Firm, but not aggressive. Got it. My mom will probably interrogate you. She's the type to offer you pie and dig into your past at the same time. And my cousin Tara, she's like a bloodhound. She'll ask about our honeymoon and our first argument and your favorite dish that I cook. She sounds charming. She's the worst. Damian tapped a finger on his knee. Tell me what your favorite dish is to cook. Stella looked surprised. What? I'm serious. If I'm going to lie, I want it to be good. She hesitated. I make these rosemary garlic roast potatoes. With lemon butter chicken. All right. That's now my favorite. She couldn't help but smile. You're really committing to this. He met her eyes. I don't do things halfway. There was a silence that settled between them then. Not awkward, not tense. Just a stillness. It was Stella who spoke next, quieter this time. Why are you really doing this? Damian leaned back, resting one arm on the back of the couch. I already told you. I've been where you are. I know what it feels like to be measured by the expectations of other people. I also know what it's like to want to protect your dignity, even if it means lying. She studied him. There was a flicker of something behind his words. Pain, maybe. Regret. Something unspoken. You don't owe me anything, she said. I know. And you're not doing this for fun. Fun isn't really my style. Then what do you want out of this? He looked at her then, truly looked at her. And for a second, all the billionaire polish and detachment melted away. There was only a man with shadows behind his eyes. I want to disappear for a few days, he said. Pretend to be someone else. Someone normal. And you need a husband. It's a win-win. She nodded slowly. You're not planning to kill me and steal my identity, are you? No. But that's exactly the kind of joke your cousin Tara would make, isn't it? Stella burst out laughing. God, yes. Damian smiled, a real one this time, and it caught her off guard. It softened the hard lines of his face, made him look younger, warmer. Almost approachable. I should probably make a list, she said, reaching for her phone. Outfits, travel details, your new backstory. You've got a lot of experience lying, don't you? She met his gaze. More than I'm proud of. Then we'll get along just fine. She stood, grabbing a folder from her kitchen counter. Here's the invite. The rehearsal dinner is Friday. The wedding's Saturday afternoon. It's at a vineyard just outside of town. Damian opened the folder, scanned the details like he was reviewing a corporate merger. I'll book a car. And a suite for us to stay in nearby. Stella tilted her head. You really don't do anything halfway. I told you. She moved toward the door, her hand resting on the knob. He took the hint and stood up. As he reached the doorway, she stopped him. Damian. He turned. If anyone asks, she hesitated. We're happy. Right. His eyes softened, just slightly. The happiest couple in the world, he said. You'll be the star of the wedding. Then he left, stepping out into the cold night. Stella stood there in the silence of her apartment, heart pounding, brain spinning. This was real. It was happening. And somehow it felt like something had already started. Not just a lie. Something bigger. The wind picked up just as Stella stepped out of the car, tugging at the hem of her soft beige dress and whipping her curls around her face. The vineyard estate rose before her in elegant splendor. Wide stone steps, ivy-covered walls, and soft amber light glowing from the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. It was everything her family loved, extravagant, traditional, polished. Just like her sister Selena. Beside her, Damian stood calm and composed, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit, one hand casually in his coat pocket, the other resting lightly on the small of her back. The gesture subtle, but intimate enough to suggest years of marriage. They looked like a couple, a power couple even. And yet, Stella's stomach was in knots. You okay? Damian murmured, bending slightly so only she could hear. No, she whispered. But I can fake it. He gave a quiet smile. Then you're ahead of the game. They stepped through the grand front doors, and immediately the noise of laughter, clinking glasses, and overexcited relatives hit them like a wall. The welcome dinner was in full swing. Round tables dressed in soft pink linens filled the grand reception hall, with candles flickering in delicate holders. String lights twinkled above. Waiters weaved through with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Stella barely had time to take it in before she heard the first voice shriek. Stella! A blur of chiffon and perfume collided with her, Selena. Stella grunted, hugging her back as Damian subtly stepped aside. Her sister looked stunning. Her dark hair and cascading curls, makeup flawless, her dress a tailored blush pink that hugged her frame perfectly. You look amazing, Selena gushed. Oh my God, is that him? Stella turned just in time to see Selena's eyes land on Damian and widen. This is him, Stella said, and surprisingly, her voice didn't shake. This is my husband, Damian. Selena extended a hand, visibly impressed. Wow, I wasn't expecting a model/movie star. Damian took her hand, all smooth charm. Pleasure to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. Selena beamed. Only the good parts, I hope. All good, he replied, without missing a beat. She speaks of you often. Stella nearly choked but kept smiling. Damian leaned toward her, brushing a hand along her waist, playing the doting husband role so perfectly it was unsettling. Selena led them into the crowd, making introductions at lightning speed. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all with eager, appraising eyes. Stella felt their gazes rake over Damian like he was a rare auction item. You work in tech, right? Asked Uncle Ray, already loosening his tie. Yes, Damian replied easily. My company develops smart infrastructure systems, software that helps cities run more efficiently. Sounds like money, Ray grinned. Stella tensed. Damian didn't. It's not about the money, but it does pay well. He didn't say it with arrogance. Just calm truth. Aunt Grace leaned forward. And how did you two meet? I'm dying to know. Stella opened her mouth, but Damian beat her to it. At a charity gala in New York, he said. I was giving a talk about educational outreach programs. She was helping organize the silent auction. I saw her across the room in a red dress, and that was it. Gasps and giggles echoed from the surrounding family. Stella just stared at him. He turned to her, brushing her hair behind her ear. Still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. If this was acting, it was Oscar-worthy. She forced herself to smile, not sure if the flush in her cheeks was from the performance or something else. An hour in, Stella had lost count of the compliments. He's so well-spoken. I can't believe you kept him a secret this long. You make such a stunning couple. For the first time in years, her mother looked at her with something like approval. She pulled Stella aside near the bar, her expression uncharacteristically soft. You really found someone good, baby. Stella's throat tightened. Thanks, Mom. I know we push too much sometimes, her mother added quietly. But I'm glad you waited. He's worth it. Stella nodded slowly, holding back a wave of guilt. Damian wasn't hers. None of this was real. But for one fleeting moment, it felt like all the rejection and judgment over the years had finally lifted. Damian approached then, carrying a glass of wine in one hand and a soda water in the other, her favorite. He passed it to her without a word, his hand brushing hers for a second longer than necessary. Your mom is sweet, he said casually once they moved away from the crowd. She's usually a tough sell. I can be persuasive. I noticed, she said, eyeing him. The gala story? The red dress. I figured you needed something romantic. It played well. You're scarily good at this. He smiled faintly. You're not so bad yourself. They found a quiet spot near the balcony doors, the chatter of the party fading behind them. Outside, the vineyard stretched under the moonlight, neat rows of grapevines dusted with frost, the night crisp and still. Stella took a sip of her drink. I don't know what I expected. But it's more than I imagined. Damian's gaze was unreadable. Is that a good thing? I think so. Maybe. I don't know. My life doesn't usually feel like this. Like what? Like I'm winning. He was quiet for a beat. Then, you should get used to it. Stella looked up at him, surprised. He turned toward her fully, his voice lower now. You've got this quiet strength. It draws people in. You don't even realize it. She blinked, caught off guard. Is that part of the performance? No, he said. That was just me. For a moment, she forgot everything, the lie, the family, the wedding. She forgot that this man was a billionaire she barely knew, and that none of this was supposed to matter. All she could feel was the way he looked at her, steady, assured, like he saw her. And that scared her more than anything else. Because this was supposed to be fake. But something inside her had already started to shift. The night had deepened into a golden haze by the time the music changed. Dinner plates had been cleared, the wine flowed freely, and laughter echoed under the chandelier-lit ceilings of the vineyard ballroom. Strings of warm bulbs hung across the rafters like suspended stars. A soft melody began to hum from the speakers, slow, tender, timeless. The kind of song that invited secrets and softened defenses. Stella stood near the edge of the room, half hidden behind a column wrapped in vines and fairy lights. Her heels were beginning to pinch, and her cheeks ached from smiling. But more than that, her nerves were fraying under the weight of too many half-truths. She watched her sister dance with her fiancé in the center of the room. Selena glowing, graceful, lost in love. The picture-perfect bride-to-be. Stella's chest clenched. Not with envy, but something quieter. Something that felt like longing. Her eyes drifted to Damian, who was speaking with her father near the fireplace. The two men looked nothing alike. Her father stocky and gray-haired, a man built by years of hard work and opinions that didn't change, and Damian, all sleek angles and quiet power. Yet somehow, they looked like they belonged in the same frame. Her father clapped him on the back. Damian gave a polite nod, then glanced across the room. His eyes found hers instantly. He walked toward her with the same unhurried, confident pace he always had, but now that she knew him better, she noticed the subtle things. The way his gaze softened a little when it settled on her. The way his jaw relaxed when he was close. "Your father's grilling skills are unmatched," Damian said as he stopped in front of her. "He'll take that as a marriage proposal," Stella deadpanned. "Good. I'd like his blessing before I elope with his daughter." She laughed, but it came out shaky. Damian's gaze flicked down to her hand, which she hadn't realized was clutching the edge of the tablecloth. "Come dance with me," he said quietly. Stella blinked. "What?" He extended his hand. "One song." She hesitated. "People are watching. They're supposed to." Her heart thudded. Slowly, she slid her hand into his. He led her into the middle of the room, weaving through tables and half-drunk relatives. The music wrapped around them, a slow, jazzy number with a hint of old-world romance. Not dramatic, not flashy, just soft. Damian placed one hand at the small of her back, the other holding hers gently. His touch was steady, his body warm through the fabric of his suit. He guided her effortlessly, like this was second nature. "You've done this before," she murmured. "Once or twice." She looked up at him, her voice almost lost in the melody. "We don't have to overdo it." "I'm not," he said. "This isn't for them." Her breath caught. "Then who's it for?" He didn't answer. Not right away. They moved slowly across the floor, each step in sync, each turn smooth. She could feel every breath between them, every heartbeat that wasn't supposed to matter. The room felt far away, muffled by the music and the closeness. Just the two of them, pretending not to fall into something neither of them had planned. "You're dangerous," she whispered without thinking. His brow lifted slightly. "Because I'm dancing with you? Because I'm starting to believe you." Damian's hand tightened slightly on her waist. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low. "Serious. You should." The words undid her. She felt it then, in the way his eyes searched hers, in the stillness between beats. The distance between them wasn't distance anymore. It was tension, heat, possibility. And then he leaned in. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't for show. It was deliberate, gentle, certain. His lips met hers like it was the most natural thing in the world, like they'd done this 1,000 times in 1,000 lifetimes. The kiss wasn't passionate or wild. It wasn't a fireworks explosion. It was quiet, steady, real. And that's what terrified her the most. She didn't want to pull away. But she did. Slowly, she stepped back. Her eyes searched his, breath shaky, mind spinning. "That wasn't part of the deal," she said, voice barely audible. "I know." Then why? Because I wanted to. He said it like it was the simplest truth. And maybe it was. But Stella's heart was a thunderstorm now, pounding and unpredictable. She looked away, eyes catching a few of her relatives watching from the edge of the room, clearly swooning. The lie was perfect, the illusion complete. But inside, her carefully built walls had just cracked. I need some air, she whispered. Damian nodded. Do you want me to? No. I need a minute. She turned and slipped through the side doors onto the balcony. The cold air hit her instantly, stinging her skin, grounding her in the moment. She gripped the railing with both hands, staring out at the rows of silent vines, breathing hard. This was supposed to be fake. All of it. A story. A solution. So why did it feel like her heart was no longer in on the plan? Behind her, the door creaked slightly, Damian checking on her. But he didn't step forward. He stayed back, gave her space. And in that simple, thoughtful act, not chasing, not demanding, not speaking, she realized something terrifying. This man, this stranger, saw her more clearly than anyone else ever had. And that kiss, it wasn't the beginning of the lie. It was the beginning of the truth. The morning sun slipped gently through the lace curtains of the guest suite, casting soft patterns across the hardwood floor and the white duvet. The vineyard estate was quiet, steeped in the slow, golden silence of a winter morning. Even the birds seemed to chirp more softly. Stella sat at the edge of the bed, legs dangling over the side, a cup of untouched coffee cooling in her hands. She hadn't slept much. Not after the kiss. Not after the way her body had betrayed her brain. Leaning into his warmth, her lips lingering a moment too long, her heart responding as if it had been waiting for that kind of kiss her whole life. She was supposed to be the one in control. This was her idea. Her lie. But now, she felt like she was the one being written into someone else's story, and that terrified her. Damian had been distant this morning, polite, calm, but noticeably withdrawn. Not cold, not rude, just guarded, like he'd retreated into the parts of himself she couldn't see yet. She thought about last night, how his hand had held hers with just enough pressure, how he'd waited for her to pull away and never forced her to stay. There was something so intentional about everything he did. And yet, she knew so little about him. Why would a man like that even agree to something like this? She set her coffee down and crossed the room, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. She needed air. Again, the hallway was silent as she stepped out, her heels muffled on the vintage rugs. Downstairs, the family was already bustling, preparing for the afternoon ceremony, fussing over decorations, yelling about misplaced ribbons and flower arrangements. She didn't go to them. Not yet. Instead, she wandered into the small library off the east wing. A quiet room with 2 velvet chairs, a fireplace crackling gently, and walls of books that probably hadn't been opened in years. She stopped when she heard voices. Muffled low. Familiar. She moved closer, standing just out of sight behind a half-open door. Damian Stone, huh? Said a male voice, rich with curiosity and just enough arrogance to make her skin crawl. Cousin Marcus. Never thought I'd see that name at a family wedding. Stella froze. The other voice was Damian's. Cool, composed. I'm sure you read a lot of things. Oh, come on. You think I don't follow finance? My buddy works at Argo Capital. They were practically betting on your company collapsing after the scandal. What was it, embezzlement? Insider trading? Something like that. A pause. Neither, Damian said. And if your friend works in finance, he should know better than to believe headlines. Stella held her breath. Marcus scoffed. So the board just accidentally ousted you? No. They panicked. They wanted someone to blame after the security breach. I walked before they could throw me to the wolves. Another pause. You still have money though, right? Stella could practically hear the smug smile in Marcus's voice. That's the only reason people are impressed. If you'd gone broke, this whole family would have chewed you up. Silence. Then Damian said, Is that why you're really here, Marcus? To remind me what a well-fed wolf looks like. Marcus laughed, but it didn't last. Footsteps retreated down the hall, and a door creaked shut. Stella didn't move for a long moment. So, the perfect man had cracks. He hadn't told her any of that. No mention of scandal. No mention of being forced out of his own company. No hint of the storm he must have walked through before winding up in her diner, sipping black coffee and offering to pretend to be her husband. She should have been angry. But instead, all she felt was something like grief. Grief for the weight he still carried in silence. Grief for how well he hid it. Later that afternoon, after the ceremony, which had gone off without a single mishap, save for a flower girl meltdown, Stella found him. He stood alone on the balcony of the reception hall, the same place they had danced just the night before. He was staring out at the distant hills, his sleeves rolled up, hands in his pockets. She walked up beside him quietly. He didn't look at her, but he knew she was there. "You heard," he said simply. "Yes." He nodded. Still didn't turn. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "Would it have changed anything?" "Yes," she said. "Then, no. I don't know." He sighed, rubbing his jaw. "I'm not proud of that chapter. And honestly, I didn't want you to look at me the way they did." She turned toward him. "And how's that? Like I was either a walking scandal or a wounded animal. Neither felt good." She was quiet for a moment. "But that's not how I see you." Now he looked at her, fully, deeply. "How do you see me, Stella?" She opened her mouth, closed it, searched his face. "I see a man who stepped in for a stranger when he didn't have to. A man who didn't flinch when a room full of judgmental relatives tried to measure him up. A man who can lie with a straight face, but doesn't lie with his eyes." Damian blinked, almost like the words had caught him off guard. Stella stepped closer. "You said something last night, that I helped you remember how to feel again." His lips parted, but she kept going. "You helped me too. I've spent so long trying to prove I'm not a disappointment. That I belong. That I matter. But when I'm with you, I don't feel like I have to try so hard." The air between them was heavy now. Not uncomfortable. Just thick with things unsaid. Damian spoke softly. "I don't want this to end when the weekend does." Her heart skipped. "I told myself I was doing this to escape. But that kiss last night," he shook his head. "It didn't feel like pretending." Stella's voice caught in her throat. "I know." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His touch was careful, not possessive, not dramatic. Just gentle. "Let's finish the lie," he said quietly. "Let them believe we're perfect. But after that, let's see what's real." She nodded. And somewhere deep inside her chest, something clicked into place. This had stopped being about saving face. It was about something she hadn't had in a long, long time. Hope. The vineyard had fallen quiet by the time Stella slipped out onto the balcony for the last time. It was past midnight. The final champagne flutes had been drained, the candles flickered low, and the dance floor, once bursting with life, was now empty, save for a few petals scattered across the wooden planks. The newlyweds had driven off hours ago, the sparkler send-off still glowing in everyone's minds. And yet, Stella stood alone under the stars, wrapped in the silence of what came after. Her heels dangled from her fingers. Her hair, once pinned up neatly for the ceremony, now fell loose around her shoulders. She was tired, not in body but in soul. The kind of exhaustion that came when your entire world had shifted in the span of a weekend. Behind her, inside the hall, Damian had just finished speaking to her parents. She'd watched from a distance, the way he held her father's gaze like an equal, the way her mother reached out and squeezed his hand. It wasn't just that they believed he was her husband. They liked him, trusted him, admired him, and a part of her hated herself for still pretending. Except was it still pretending? The kiss. The way he had touched her hand earlier during dinner, under the table, just because he wanted to. The words he'd whispered in the vineyard after the ceremony. Let's see what's real. She didn't know what scared her more, the fact that it had started as a lie, or the fact that it no longer felt like one. "Thought I'd find you out here." She turned at the sound of his voice. Damian stood in the doorway, jacket now off, sleeves rolled, collar loosened. Less billionaire. More man. A man who had been through something with her. A man who saw her, not the waitress, not the liar, not the black sheep of her family, her. He walked over and stood beside her, looking out over the now darkened rows of grapevines. "They're asking when we're coming back to visit," he said lightly. "Apparently your cousin Tara wants us to co-host a game night." Stella groaned. "God, no. She cheats at charades." She also asked if we were planning a vow renewal for our anniversary. Stella laughed, but it came out softer than usual. "This got out of hand." "Maybe," Damian said. "Or maybe it got us exactly where we were supposed to be." She looked at him, searching his face. "Are you sure this isn't just the high from pretending we're something we're not?" He turned fully toward her, and for the first time, there was no trace of the polished mask. No performance. No practice lines. Only him. "No," he said. "I've been with women who looked perfect on paper. Dated models, CEOs, even a princess once. None of them ever made me feel like I belonged." Stella's breath caught. "I don't know what this is," he continued. "But when I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm trying to be someone else. Or protecting something. I just feel." He reached into his pocket and pulled something out, a simple folded note. She raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Something I wrote last night, in case I couldn't say it out loud." He handed it to her. Stella unfolded it slowly. Inside, in clean, straight handwriting, were just a few lines. "You thought you needed a husband, but what you really needed was someone to see you. And I didn't expect to be that person. But I want to be, if you'll let me." Stella's hands trembled. She looked up, eyes shimmering. "You don't owe me anything," she said quietly. "I'm not offering this because I owe you," Damian replied. "I'm offering it because I want more. I want real. With you." She took a shaky breath. "I don't have a mansion. Or a company. Or a wardrobe that doesn't come from outlet sales." "Perfect," he said. "I have enough of all that for both of us." She laughed through a tear that slipped down her cheek. "And I cry too easily," she whispered. "Good," he said, stepping closer. "Then I won't be crying alone." She didn't wait this time. Stella stepped into him, wrapping her arms around his waist, resting her head against his chest. His arms came around her immediately, holding her like something precious, not fragile, but deeply valued. The stars above blinked softly. The wind rustled the grapevines below. And for the first time in a very long time, Stella felt still. Not running. Not hiding. Just home. He pulled back slightly, tilting her chin up with 2 fingers. "So," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "what do you say we stop pretending?" And then he kissed her, this time with no performance behind it. No pressure. Just promise. And Stella knew this wasn't the end of the lie. It was the beginning of something real. Of something hers. Forever. We have come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.